Hello everyone, welcome. This is SharePoint Power Hour and I'm Laura Rogers. Welcome to our weekly show. SharePoint Power Hour is a show that we do every Wednesday at 11 Central, and it's all about things that you can do in SharePoint and in SharePoint Online with Office 365 without having to be a programmer or a server admin. All kinds of topics are covered on this show. We have our Corey and Joelle here visiting, and you'll notice my little logo up here in the top corner of IW Mentor is the name of my new SharePoint training company that I just started just in the past couple of weeks. So I just kind of wanted to let y'all know about that. Today's topic, I put out a little vote for you guys just over the past few days, and you all voted on query strings as the topic. So that's a good one for, building business solutions, building dashboards and things like that. Query strings are always a good thing to be able to understand and use in SharePoint and all our views and forms and things like that. So we'll go ahead and I'll let you two guys introduce yourselves, and then I'll do my demo, and then after y'all introduce yourselves, I'll talk about the Slack channel too.
It's like, who's going to go first? I don't know.
You're alphabetically first, Corey. You always have to go first.
I always have to go first. It's all right. So I'm Corey, right there. I am a SharePoint developer, sort of with Rackspace, not for long-ish. Been working SharePoint like 10 years-ish. I don't know, do a lot of out-of-the-box stuff. See if I learn anything about query strings today. I love query strings. They're fun. There's a lot of stuff you can do with them. And it feels like hacking, even though it's not, which is fun.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. Just making sure. So my name is Joelle Farley. I am with Co-Designed Consulting and Design SharePoint Design Company out of Atlanta. And I use query strings all the time to build dashboard pages and all kinds of good stuff out of the box. So I think you guys will find this very interesting.
Good times. All right. So I discovered a new way for us to be able to chat during power hours. The Q&A in Google Hangouts was just a little limiting, so I created a form you can fill out to request to be invited, and it's in the description of this YouTube video and in the description of the Google Hangout video. And basically, you fill out the form, request to join it, then I have to invite you to the Slack channel, which is iwmentor.slack.com. But then once you're in and once you've been invited, you can just go straight to Slack every week when we have Power Hour. It's an app. It's an app on Windows and iOS. It's an app on your phone. It's really fun to just have Slack and just install it and just have it running. I can see there are about 10 people or so that are logged in here that are using the app. It's just a little more limiting when you're just going in the browser, because I don't know. It's just you have to kind of remember to do it, and it's not just going to pop up and have notifications and things like that. So inside of the Slack channel, I created you'll see a little hashtag Power Hour in there on the left in the navigation, and that's where we go to have our conversations. So everybody go ahead and pop on in there and say hi, and this is where we're going to have discussions and ask questions and things as we're going, just as we're doing the demo, because that's the fun part about it being a live show, right, is that we can talk about it as we go and we can answer questions. So you guys go ahead and jump on in there. We've got about, I think, 40 people or so have already joined and been invited, and you can just go back in there if you've already been. All right, so enough talking about, hey, Mike, enough talking about Slack. I'll go ahead and start talking about query strings, and hopefully my computer won't go nuts like it did the other day as soon as I started sharing my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and just flip over to screen share here, and let's see. I'll share my browser here. All right, can y'all see it? Oh, and I think I need to go to the Google Hangout and make sure it's sharing. Oh, present. I have to click present to everyone so that it fills the screen up, so it doesn't show all the little faces at the bottom. All right, can y'all nod, Joelle and Corey, if y'all see my screen? Okay, cool. Alrighty, so for the concept of query strings, I'm going to start off with just showing you a couple of simple concepts here, and you'll realize that you've probably seen query strings being used in lots of different places. So one place you'll notice is that when you go open an item in a SharePoint list. Now, this is something I wanted to point out. It's a little more tricky when when the little pop-up is enabled. And when you're viewing a list item in SharePoint, it's harder to be able to see what the query string is that it's using because it's it's kind of hidden. There's no URL up here showing you what page you're on. So if I want to be able to go just kind of see information about query strings for just a list item, I can go just kind of temporarily flip off the little launch forms in a dialog box, and that's one of those things that in SharePoint 2013 this is actually set to no by default, and you have to manually go turn that on if you want to have those pop-ups. But if I just go open just some item in SharePoint anywhere, I'm going to go ahead and just copy this information, I'm just going to kind of talk you through some of it. The main important part that I'm going to talk about is going to be this ID equals 2. So all this stuff in here that you see with the little question mark, the first query string that you're going to have is going to have a question mark in front of it. And let me go ahead and fix my screen resolution so y'all can see all that a little bit better. The first thing that you're going to see in a URL, anytime you see a question mark something equals, that's going to be your query string. So that actually sends information down to that item that you're looking at in SharePoint and to be able to show a specific item. So this ID equals 2, ID is that unique item in SharePoint that is the second item created in that list. So we've got other things in here like after your first query string, anything you put, you're going to put the ampersand for all the other query strings that kind of delineate in between them. So I'm not going to go into detail and put a whole bunch of different query strings at first, but I just kind of wanted to point out just this basic one you might want to have seen a lot of places is just this ID equals. All right, so but query strings are something where you can make up your own query strings. So for example, let me go back to my little list of company policies here. All right, I've got some company policies. So what I can do is, just a common thing that I see people do would be, okay, well, I have a department for all these different company policies, but I want to have different views that people can flip between that just are filtered by different departments because you might have hundreds of company policies. So one way you might do it would be you could, say, create a view, and you can create.
Laura, if you're meaning to share your screen, you're not.
Oh, I'm not? Okay.
Nope.
All right, I was, and then it went away?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. I'm just going to do entire screen, because I had picked a specific window to share, and I guess it didn't share it. It shared it and went away at some point?
Yeah, it was like, oh, she's no longer presenting, so.
Oh, okay. That is very odd. Now it's like, woo, psychedelic.
Now
Okay.
you provoke it.
Now.
Yep.
All right. So what I was showing just real quick was that when I'm looking at an item in SharePoint, we're looking at the URL up here, and we're looking at right after you get to the end of the display form, you have just the page you're looking at, this ID equals, and the question mark ID equals something. That is a query string. So the first one's going to have a question mark, and then all the query strings after it are going to have ampersand something else equals, ampersand something else equals something. So that's just the concept of a query string. The way it's structured is just some value that's in the URL that you're looking at. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is just a common example that we could do in a library, so you can see my library, right, I think. My library has got a department column, and so one thing I've seen people do is go and create a whole bunch of different views for each department. So I could say create a view, and I can call it information technology. I'm showing you the inefficient way, and then I'm going to show you the more efficient way with query strings. So then I could say show all items when the following is true, and then Contoso department is equal to information technology. Hello everyone that's joining the Slack channel. Feel free to, I could put a link in there to my blog. I have a bunch of query string type of blog posts that I've written before, so I put a link that just kind of shows you all those, or you could just go to wonderlar.com and type query string in the search box and you get the same thing. I've got kind of step-by-step things introducing different ways to use query strings. So here's the inefficient way, would be to go create a bunch of different views, one for each department. But what I can do for this is I can just create department as a query string, and then just send that query string information to the Webpart whenever they go and look at it. Now, one way I could do it is I could just, I'm going to use this query string filter, query string URL filter Webpart. That's very powerful. But you could just go directly edit a view in a list or library. I'm not going to do that just because I want to. I don't know. I don't really like messing with the views, the pages that the views are on, because it messes up. You lose the ribbon and all kinds of weird stuff happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new Webpart page and just have a nice clean surface and not mess with the out-of-the-box views to be able to create this query string by department concept. So I'll go ahead and go to my little site pages library. It's just a quick way of doing it. Where's site pages? Site pages, and I'm going to create a Webpart page because wiki pages drive me crazy. All right, and I'm just going to call it department, like that. Okay. And I'm going to, first I'm just going to put my library here, and it's my policies, like that. All right, and then here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my query string filter, query string URL filter Webpart. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. Now I'm going to go ahead and add just the department column to this view, just so we can see, just so we can see that's working when we start filtering it. So I'll go edit my current view of this Webpart and add my Contoso department. It doesn't have to be showing there in order to do this filter. Okay, notice that the query string filter Webpart doesn't actually show. It's not something that end users are going to see on the page. It's just doing stuff behind the scenes. So I'm going to say, what do I want to call my parameter? I can just call this department. I can just call it DEPT to make it nice and short. It's up to me whatever I call it. Whatever I call it, whatever name I type here is what I'm going to have to use in my URL. Something equals something. All right, so I'll show you how that works. So there's my department. I'm just not going to put a default value in there. I'll click OK. And so now I've got the department in the query string filter, but it's not actually doing anything. I have to connect this. So any kind of filter Webparts, they're pretty much not going to do anything until you connect them to another Webpart. So that's where I can go create a connection, send filter values to policies. I think we did a whole power hour about just all the filter Webparts, by the way. So I'm going to get my parameter, or get a filter value. I'll just do that one. And so the query string, that department value that I'm going to pass to the policies, I have to point to which column it's going to filter by. So remember, that's my Contoso department. So whatever value I have in the URL that I'm going to use it's going to send the filter value to that specific column that I just selected. So now there should be, so now there's no filter being sent yet. So watch this. I'm going to go department. So let me just get rid of all this page view, blah, blah, blah stuff. So here's just the URL to this page I created. And if I go question mark DEPT equals, so DEPT is the value just that I typed in the settings of the query string filter web part. DEPT equals, and I'll put operations. Look at that. Ta-da, golf clap. All right. So there's my, come on, y'all. Y'all need to get more lively in the chat window. And for anybody that's requested to join after I started talking, I can't let people in because I have to go manually invite everybody. So I will get you for the next round though. All right. So now you can see that all I have to do is change my URL. And whatever word I type in there, it's going to have accounting as one of my departments. See, it's going to filter it. Pretty cool, right? So that way I don't have to create a bunch of different views that are filtered. I can just create one view or one page like this and just have URLs. And think about it. Think about, if you have this department, this view in your library, if you had a whole bunch of different department filtered views and then you had to go change something, or you had to go add a column, or change the sort order or something, you'd have to go edit every single one of those different department views, and that would be very redundant. That would be a lot of work, right? So this is just a more efficient way. So what we're going to do, what you would do next is you would take these URLs, so like department equals accounting, and you could put it in a pretty little promoted links web part or just a bunch of hyperlinks. So I'm going to, I don't know if I want to take a bunch of time and put a bunch of promoted links in a web part, but what I could do is I could just go, go to my home page or something and add, just picture, I'll just do, I'm not going to mess with my home page. It's got all this other stuff going on with it. I'm just going to do a hyperlink. So I'll just do that real quick. Let's see if I have a links list that already exists yet. No. I'm going to put it in my promoted links that I already have. All right, I'm just going to create a new one. I'm going to say accounting. So then all I have to do is put a bunch of different links. It's just a bunch of different URLs, and I'll just put accounting there. This is related to something else. This is what I was sort of tying things together with to make it so that it shows people, certain promoted links that are related to what department they're in. All right, so now you could go create either just a list of hyperlinks, or just even list of links in your navigation that would be a bunch of different hyperlinks like this, but they can all just have a different word at the end, right? So it would just be, then you'd create another link that's this URL, then you create another link for the other, whatever all the departments are. So you're creating several different hyperlinks, but you're not having to create a bunch of different views. All right, does that make sense? So y'all give me some feedback in the chat window. If just give me hey, how was that? Yep, let's practice the little reactions. So y'all hover over what I just typed, and you can see it'll have the little smiley face thing. It'll say add reaction, and you can go add reactions to what I just typed in Slack. Corey, you show them. All right, so I'm going to thank you. There are a bunch of little silly ones in there too. Yeah. There. I did a little Giphy in there too. That's weird. Okay, now I'm going to show you another use for query strings. One thing I can do is I can have I created this, in my onboarding demo that I did in that whole series of Power Hour Power Hours, where I talked about having an HR department that has an onboarding process, and each new hire comes in and they all have their own process for onboarding in the company. Well, what I did was I created a little dashboard for each employee. So, and it's got this little custom action here on the drop down, but that is using query strings. So I'm going to take this concept here that I used with new hires to just show a bunch of web parts, and I'm going to do it with projects. And we'll just kind of show you kind of what all the different moving parts are. Now for projects, so here's my list. I've got projects, and I've got a bunch of other different related items to that project. So one thing that I could do is, without using query strings, is there's another filter Webpart, the SharePoint list filter, that I create connections just like I showed you with the query string Webpart connection, but I just put the SharePoint list filter that lets me just pick an item from a list and then interactively see all the things that are related to it. But what we want to do is, let's go ahead and create a query string so that people can just click the name of the project and then just immediately be taken to a dashboard that's just got that one project, where they don't have to go pick the project from a drop-down or something like that. All right, so I've got projects here, and then I want to be able to just click a link or something to be able to take me to this page that's got some query string information. So I'm going to go create a new page. I love creating Webpart pages in my site pages. And y'all let me know in the chat window if y'all have any questions about things you're trying to do with query string Webparts, because I've got a couple of different examples I'm going to talk about. So I'll go ahead and create a Webpart page, and I'm going to do the one on an actual list form as well. So, all right, so this is going to be project. Let's call it project query like that. And site pages, and go. All right. I will put my project tasks and there's a little trick to the project tasks ones, by the way. Actually, I meant to put that down lower. Let me see. It's probably just easier for me. My screen is so big with the resolution I have, it's easier for me to just add it in a different place than it is to try and grab the top of it and drag it. Okay, so then I've also got project documents. I'll just do 2 of them. Now this project task, you'll notice that this is sort of like the new look, the new sort of 2013 task look. Well, that's buggy. It's not going to let you do Webpart connections to a task list like that with that sort of SharePoint 2013 view selected. So what I've had to do is you have to create a view in your list that uses not the default style. So I'll just pick this one called Simple that I created. And the trick to make it actually function is to get rid of this style. Don't use the style called default. So I'll just use basic table like that. As long as you don't use the default style, you will be able to do connections to your task web parts. My little tip of the day there.
Question.
Okay. He said what content type was for the projects list. We're not doing anything with content types in this demo. So yeah. No, none of this has any content types. It's just a bunch of lists with lookup information from one to the other. Just super simple. All right. Now, when you're planning things like this ahead, you definitely would want to create content types for all these different things and for your project fields that you use in different lists. But this one, we're not talking about content types because I'm trying to just focus on the query string stuff. So I don't think there are any content types in the site. All right, so I'm going to put my query string URL filter here, and it's in my filters. And I need to decide what I want to call it. I'll just call it project. It can be whatever word I want to make up, though. It could be a P, it could be anything. And just so whatever I use, though, in that Webpart setting is what I have to type into my URL to do the query. All right, then I can go ahead and connect this to a couple of other Webparts here. And I want to use my project field. So this part's going to be a little tricky. Let's see. Because what I want to do is the value that I'm sending from the URL has to match exactly the value for the project. So that's going to be the, I'm going to go ahead and use the ID because I know that's going to be unique. I could just use like project name or something, but I want to just, I want people to be able to have projects with potentially the same name and not have to worry about it. ID is always going to be unique. So that's project ID, and I'm going to do another Webpart connection to, all right, thanks Paul. All right, let's see, project tasks, and then get filter value. I wish we still had the DataView Webpart in 2013 because we could do all that fun stuff that you can do inside of SharePoint Designer with your views and creating parameters in there too, and not have to use the query string filter. But I don't think we're going to have the bandwidth to try that kind of thing. Maybe, we'll see. So let's see, I need project ID. Okay, so let me show you why I don't have a project ID field. I don't want to use the ID of the item that I'm in. I don't want to use the ID of the actual document. I need the project ID. All I have is the project field. Well, the project field has like the name of the project and everything. It's not just the ID. So here's where it gets a little tricky. Since I need it to be consistent and I need this ID field to exist there, let me show you why the project tasks has it right now and the project documents doesn't. All right, so and it's a lookup field, so this is a lookup field from the project's task list to the project list. Let's see, project lookup, and then, yeah, that's weird that it didn't have, okay, I'm just going to check that box. So it's got information from the project's list in the ID field, and I'm bringing it over. Hopefully I'm not just confusing the heck out of myself with like multiple lists with the same name and stuff in here. Let me fix this URL. Project tasks, yeah. All right, project documents. Okay, let me go to, okay, project documents is the one that already had the ID. That's what it was. Okay, sorry, I got them twisted around. Okay, see, it's my lookup field to the project list, so I can pick a project for every document, but I additionally checked the ID field, so it's also bringing over, when I do the lookup, it's bringing over the ID of whatever project I picked. So here's where, I have selected a project, and then, you can see that Beach Vacation is project number 1, so it's also bringing over the ID. So when I'm doing this, this dashboard that I'm creating, it helps to have, like, the ID is going to be the consistent thing that it filters all the projects by, and that's going to be the thing that I use in the query string. So that's what I'm going to use. Let me go back to my site pages. So that's what I'm going to use here. All right. Page, edit page. So now I created the one connection to the project documents. Now let's go see if the connection to the project task, it's going to have an ID this time. So get a filter value. And yeah, did y'all paste the, yeah, can y'all paste the link to the YouTube broadcast too in there in the,
it's on there.
Channel? Okay. All right. See, look, there it is, project ID. So now it's going to be nice and consistent, and whatever the ID is, it will filter those. Okay, so now I get rid of all this junk at the end of my URL. Okay, so all I have to do is, remember, in my query string URL filter is not showing here, but all I have to do is just remember what word I used, what I called it. So projectquery.aspx is the page that I'm on, and then I use the word project. Project equals 1. So look at that. So now you can see it automatically filters all the information by that specific project. So I could add more web parts. I could add the web part of the project itself, so it would show that one line item. I can show my project calendar, so I can just add a bunch of web parts and do the same exact thing. Just make sure each one of the other lists that looks up to projects has that ID also selected, and then just keep adding more web parts and do the connections. Can have them all on the same page, and that would kind of mimic what we had on this other one, where you have to select a project, and then it sends the filter value to the information. It's like the details about that one project, which is just a style in your view called details or detailed view or something, or boxed. Is that what it's called? Boxed. And then it just sends it to all the other ones. So same concept. Now, if I wanted to be on a project and go to the dashboard, I'll show you how to do that. That's in SharePoint Designer. All right, I'm going to open my site. RTN. And go. All right, y'all are very quiet. Have y'all used these before, or what do you think? Or are you wondering, what else you can do with them and stuff like that? Are y'all all just query string pros in here, and you're not learning anything new? Woo, psychedelic! Just waiting for SharePoint Designer to pull that page up. Let's see, it's still going. God, that's so funny. All right, it's so funny. It wouldn't pull up my my sites in my VM. It was giving me all these weird errors. So let me go back. Oh my goodness, it's taking forever. I hate you, SharePoint Designer. All right. I don't really know.
Maybe they'll improve it in the next version.
Yeah. Or get rid of it. Yeah, okay. I'm going to go ahead, and I don't feel like waiting for that, so I want to just show you. Oh, wait, here it goes. Oh, finally. Okay. Okay, so I've got projects right here. So here's my SharePoint list. And then custom actions is that we did a whole power hour on custom actions and quick parts too, didn't we? So we could link to the power hour we did about filter web parts, and we could link to the power hour we did about custom actions, and so we did deep dives into those topics. But this is where we could go in here and create the custom action, which would put the little link on the drop-down box to that specific page, that little dashboard page. Now this is very, very slow for some reason. So yeah, I don't know if I feel like waiting for it. Let me show you just some of this concept with customizing the form page itself too. All right, I'm going to go to Project Tasks, and I'm going to make sure I create a view. I'm just going to create a view that doesn't have that default style, just so it's nice and simple. I'm going to go to my task. I'm just going to call it Old School. And I'm going to get rid of a couple of these things. And a checkbox, make it really nice and neat and small, and change my style so it's old school, so it's not using the default, anything but default pretty much. All right, so there's this task view that I'm creating. So what I'm getting at is the idea here is that when somebody opens up a project, and I'm just like opening up a project and just looking at that project, I want to show related items on that same page. Ooh, right? We've done that lots of times, haven't we, Corey? Joel. So I want to just show them right on the same page in the form that people open. So again, a form is just a Webpart page as well. So I can take if I go to the list tab of any list, I have this drop down here called Form Webparts. Ooh, so I pick. So new form is of course when people are filling out a brand new, they're creating the brand new project. The display form is just when you're looking at one, and the edit form is when you're editing one. So I'm going to go ahead and do this on the display form. So when they open a project to look at it, that's where I want to show the related tasks. So here's my little Webpart page. Nice. Did y'all know that that you could do this with forms, that they had Webparts? Y'all are very quiet. All right, 43 members. Y'all are all very quiet. Okay, I'm going to add a Webpart of project tasks. I don't want it to be at the top. I'm going to have to move it, move stuff around. There we go. I don't have a filter on there yet, but what I want to do is I want to make it so that when somebody's looking at this project, it's going to show the related tasks. So when you're doing the display form, disform.aspx, it already, by default, remember the very first thing I showed you was that it has ID equals, 1, 2, 3, whatever the unique ID of the item is. Well, I'm going to make it filter this project tasks by just using that value that I know is already being passed to that form, the ID. So I'm going to say I want the ID of that item I'm looking at to be used to filter this task list to only show projects with that ID. Ooh, right? But then I also want to take that and change it to my other view that I created that's nice and simple, that I called old school, just because I had, it was nice and kind of narrowed down, and I don't need to have the toolbar and all that. I don't really want to see the timeline. I just want it to be nice and simple, list of tasks, right? All right, so now I have a nice simple list of tasks, and let's go ahead and stop editing and see what that looks like. And I will go open one of these up. Ooh, I got a broken web part. It's nice. Let me see. Did it do that on all of them? Oh, it did. That's awesome. Okay. That is very odd. Let me see. It probably, that poor task web part didn't like those changes that I made to it. I made the changes after, after I sent the query string to it. So let me, I'm going to delete that. Yeah, I think I confused the heck out of that poor web part. It'll be okay, SharePoint. Okay, let me drag that other one up here again. And let me change the view first, and then start messing with the connections. Change it to old school. I'm just going to do one thing at a time so it doesn't get too confused. Okay, and then this little, I don't want to have that new task stuff right there, so I'm going to get, take the toolbar off, no toolbar. Okay, we're still good, it's not broken. And then click OK, so I haven't created the connection yet, it's not broken yet. Let me go double check that it's not broken. I haven't done the filter. Okay, just want to make sure it wasn't broken. Okay, now let's see if it breaks when I create the connection. We've done this before, right, Corey? And it doesn't usually just randomly break, so let's try this again. Provide row 2, project tasks, get a filter value. The provider is the ID, and the consumer is the ID. And let's see if it's broken. Ooh, yeah.
Oh, no, you can't do it that way.
Oh, is it the parameter, right? That's what
No, you have to use the query string web part.
Oh, really? Not
Yeah.
I know I've demoed this in my, I think.
That's how we had to do it in that project.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So you use the query string web part, which will get the query string, like the ID from the URL, and then you connect that query string web part to the other web parts on the page.
I've done it both ways before. I can't remember why I did it one way versus the other.
The other one kept breaking on us.
In my class that I teach, I've always just like clicked on it. So ID is already the name of the query string, so we can't change it to something else other than ID because it's already, ID is the one it's using just out of the box, so we have to use ID. Yeah, I've done it both ways. I think that there's something funky specifically with the project tasks too, though, so that might be what's coming into play here. Now, projects is already filtered, so like Corey said, thank you, Corey. I have to send the filter value to project tasks, and it's a is it a parameter or a filter? It's a. I use filter for all the other ones. So, all right. Click OK, and magic. Ta-da! Yay! Okay, so I added the query string filter, URL filter to the form page, and then made it so that, like, I didn't even have to create any kind of special dashboard or anything. They just open up this list item, and it automatically shows the related items on the form. Now let's go try, I'm going to try making it so that it's a pretty modal pop-up. And I think they have less questions in here, Joelle, in Slack than they did in the Google Hangouts. Advanced settings, and I'm going to put the modal pop-up and see how nice that looks. All right, yeah. So there's the information about my project, and there's the related information. Okay, so I think, Corey, I think I can still hear you typing.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right, so this thing finished opening. Now let's look at the custom action. So custom action is going to be, I'm on my projects and I want to have a special button that will take me to that dashboard that I created for the project with, you know, multiple web parts on it. So don't click the new button here, just put your cursor and click down in this custom action box, and then you'll have a bunch of different options as opposed to just the one thing that it gives you with the new button. So I'm going to do just a list item menu. I'm not going to do all these because we had a whole power hour about it, but I'll just say project dashboard. That, and then what do I want to navigate to? I need to navigate to the URL of my special page I created. So I need to go find that. I need to go get that URL. So I'm going to go to my site pages, and that's my project query. I'm just going to right click and grab that shortcut, and that's where I want to go. Question mark ID equals, notice right here on the screen I'm just going to use that item ID. Joelle, did you ever find that there were any other, or either y'all ever find that there were any other ones besides item ID? I know both of y'all had looked into that at some point.
Yeah, there's workaround. I have an echo. Sorry, but there's a workaround.
Ah. Okay. Is that something you blogged about, or is that something you have a link to anywhere?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go, now I'll notice that I have Project Dashboard as an option here, and this will take me to the dashboard I created, and look, it's got the ID equals 2, so the filter's already being sent to these other web parts. So let's go, and I can go, you know, to this other one, Project Dashboard, and I can see ID equals 1, so that's, you know, showing those filtered items, I believe. Yeah, I think. Let me double check. Yeah. Yeah, connections. I've got so many files in this library. Like the quantity of files I was looking at didn't look very different, so I wasn't sure if it worked. Okay. So the next thing is.
We have a question.
Oh, sure. Will this have any impact on the new library layouts will be implemented? Paul. Of course it will. I'm not going to start delving into that, Paul, until we'll wait another month or so until after the big May 4th thing at the big the Future of SharePoint event where they're going to announce that and, you know, all the changes coming up. So I'm going to hold off and because who knows? Because they made the change to the libraries already, and there's I don't think that's that's not final necessarily because it's Office 365 and because it's constantly being improved. So I'm gonna hold off a little bit on that to see kind of what turns out with that. Yeah, you're right. A lot's coming. It's pretty exciting. I can't wait to go to that. All right, so I've got like 15 minutes left. I'm going to try to attempt something in SharePoint Designer. So what I'm going to do is go into my lists and libraries in here, and I'll just pick one that's got, so project phases. Let's see. What am I using project phases for? I'm gonna pick on project phases just because I haven't messed with that one yet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can create a query string parameter just directly in the list. And this would be to be able to avoid using the query string URL filter Webpart, and for people who don't have the enterprise version of SharePoint and they don't have that, or if you're just on SharePoint 2010 and you can still edit the views and edit your Webparts in SharePoint Designer, that's going to be an option for you. So what I need to have in my project phases list before I can go and do stuff in here is I need to have like a view that is like the old school thing that doesn't have the default view. So I'll go create a new view, call it old school. We've done lots of this, right, Corey? Parameters inside of Webparts and filters in 2010.
Oh, yes.
So I'm going to make this the hours and hours of our lives, right? Okay, basic table. So basically the only thing I did to is I made it so it's not using the default view, but you'll notice that when I do that I lose the little ability up here right at the top of the page to switch between views. The only way to switch between views when you do this is on the list tab. So you're not going to want to do this all over the place. The only reason I'm creating this is to be able to show you this thing over in SharePoint Designer. So I'll go to my old school view here, and again you're not going to get this thing I'm going to show you if you're using one of the default style. Let me just let it load here. Okay, let me put my cursor inside. Let me wait till it finishes loading. And go. It's still doing something. All right, there we go. Okay, all I did was click inside of this Webpart just anywhere, and look at that. Remember this? Oh, the good old DataView Webpart. Oh, y'all, I uploaded all my old DataView Webpart videos to my YouTube channel. It's like 30 videos or something of back in SharePoint 2007 when I made, this was back in the year 2009, I made a whole bunch of DataView Webpart videos. And I blogged about DataView Webparts all the time. Anyway, this is memories, right? So I'm going to... I was trying to read Mike's question over there. I'm not sure what... That's really weird. I'm not sure. He's asking about something different. All right. Okay, so here's my sort of DataView Webpart stuff. But watch this. See, here I have parameters. So I have the ability to create a parameter directly in here. Now what kind of, so I have number of hours, and I'm just going to use that as the field that I'll, do a filter on, just because I see that that's a field that I have here. I don't want to go creating new stuff, just trying to do this pretty quickly. So I'm just going to take number of hours and just use that. I'm just going to say that's going to be what my filter is going to be on, as opposed to department like I had in the other one. So I'm going to create a parameter, call it hours, and make it a query string parameter. And what do I want the query string to say? I don't know why, but I always make that be like a different value than this one here. Query string is going to say hours. So hours parameter is what the parameter is called. Query string is going to be hours, and that's the word that I have to use in my URL. All right. I even have one of those old DataView Webpart videos I did about query strings in the DataView Webpart too. So, blast from the past. All right, so I created the query string. It doesn't just do anything by itself, though, just having it exist. I would need to also add a filter. So here's where, and this is just the same concept as a filter in a view. So I'll go add number of hours equals, and then that's where I can pick the name of my parameter I just selected. So it's going to filter the list of items where the number of hours equals whatever number I put in my URL. And bam. All right, I'm going to save that. And I'm just going to hit F12 real quick to just bring that page up in the browser. So old school question mark hours equals 2. I don't have any items without. Okay, let me see how many hours do my items have. I have to go open up that list. Project phases 20. Okay, let me go back to my 20. Ta-da! All right, so now that's just a different way of filtering something by a query string without actually even using the query string filter Webpart. Magic. All right, y'all all seemed very interested in query strings when I did the poll, and as you know, this being the topic you all wanted to talk about. Any questions about how they work or how we're using them or anything else cool you can think of, Corey, that we did in projects that used query strings to do fancy stuff?
I think the only thing was passing things from one form to another form.
Oh God, yeah.
But that's a little complicated.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how I could whip that up in 8 minutes.
Probably can't.
I did write a blog post about how to do that. Well, first of all, you have to have a custom form.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to insert your custom form onto the page where your list is, and then, oh my gosh, yeah. We'll have to say, that's something that people want to do all the time, though. So we'll have to have like a whole power hour about that. I have to figure out what the best way to do it, though, in 2013 is in Office 365, because the way we used to do it in 2010, or the way you do it with InfoPath, you know, some people don't necessarily want to use InfoPath. So just a quick note about InfoPath, though, you'll notice in InfoPath when you're publishing a form library form, it has an option in there that says, as you're going through the publishing wizard, let me go ahead and stop sharing my desktop. Let's see. Let me make sure it's not. Okay, cool. There I am. All right. So in InfoPath, you'll notice when you're going through the publishing wizard, it's got a little section when you're picking what columns you're going to use. There's a section called parameters. So that's going to be useful if you are using the InfoPath form Webpart and you want to be able to pass something like a query string parameter or even pass information from the InfoPath form Webpart to another Webpart. Like you click a button and it sends filter information to another Webpart on like some kind of dashboard page. So that's another place parameters are used. Let's see, what else? Oh, got. Yeah, full power hour on passing values from one form to another would be very beneficial. Yeah, see, the thing about that is I'd want to try and avoid InfoPath, just, I don't know, I guess we could do both. But the trick is that you have to have a custom form. So like the new form, display form, edit form, those, you'd have to have one of those, like, on, I don't know. You'd have to.
I think you'd pretty much have to use InfoPath, wouldn't you?
No, you'd have to have the ability to either. You just have to have it on its own page, really, with the ability to accept a parameter. So it would have to. Now you could have it so like if I have a project, like in the example we had with a project and then project tasks, you'd want people to be able to click a button to create a new task for that project, and it just populates the project in there. So we could create a custom form that's just on its own, just different page. And then the new task button would just take them to that custom form where we would be passing a parameter into the form already. I wrote a blog post on how to do that back in 2010 on how to go in and tweak the code to do that. But yeah, that would be a fun Power Hour, and it's definitely different in 2013.
Well, and that's similar to the dashboard idea of having like a form for a project and a form for, time entry on the same page, so you could pass values from one to the other. You create a project, and then it would automatically populate the form next to it.
Yeah. So I guess we could do a Power Hour that does all the sort of multiple options. Like one of them would be just pretty simple, taking you to a whole other page that has that form on it, and another one would be the blank form is on the bottom of the page already, and then another one would be like using InfoPath, and then another one would be like using even like inline editing. So it's like a row that you're adding, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I don't think I'm going to be able to have Power Hours for the next 2 weeks because I'll be in Australia and then I'll be at the big May 4th event. So May 4th is on a Wednesday. Yeah. Well, we're not going to do Power Hour on May 4th anyway, even if I was here, because we're watching the big Future of SharePoint event. So y'all definitely sign up for that. It's all over the place. I think I tweeted it. Microsoft's got it all over their blogs. It's just go Bing Future of SharePoint event.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm in the future right now with my cool little All right. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining our 15 or so live viewers that we had, and all of our friends over in the Slack channel. That's a lot of fun. Oh, Paul says, would you use Microsoft Forms? Microsoft Forms. That's one of those. I don't know if I'm going to delve into the brand new stuff or like Power Apps yet, because Power Apps doesn't have a Webpart, so you can't do that with Power Apps. Power Apps, yeah, it's not really connected to SharePoint yet. So yeah, it's okay, Ann. Thanks for coming. I was wondering where you were. It's over now. But thanks everybody for popping in, and feel free, next time, once I, let everybody in who's been asking for invites, y'all can pop into the chat window like half an hour before it starts and just start saying hello and chat and ask questions and stuff. I know how you feel, and I'm starting to get a headache too. I think I'm really hungry. Thanks everybody for coming. Don't forget to sign up for Microsoft's Future SharePoint event. I'll go ahead and I'll find that link and I'll paste it in the Slack channel so y'all can go register for that if you haven't. But that's pretty exciting. Like, you are going to want to see this. It's going to be huge. So, hey, all right, cool. Well, I will see you all in Power Hour in like 3 weeks. So, thanks everybody for coming. Over and out.
Bye everyone.